Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to another one of my Cotswold Walks series here. We're in the southern part of the Cotswolds and we're going to be doing a walk over 3 hills. It's actually going to be a climb of some 300 metres in total on the walk today. I'm here early in the town of Dursley in the southern part of the Cotswolds. Now previously we've done walks looking at how you can get to Cotswolds by car. This isn't one of those specifically today, but you also have the nearby Cam Dursley Railway Station, and I'll do a couple of maps. I'll do one of the walk I'm actually doing today, starting here, right here in the heart of the town of Dursley, and I'll modify it so if you want to arrive here by train from Cam Dursley Railway Station, you're most welcome to do that. Cam Dursley has an hourly service from places like Bristol and Gloucester, 15 minutes from Gloucester, 30 minutes from Bristol Temple Meads every hour, and I'll link to the description of those OS maps in the video today. Now we have actually been to Dursley before. When I was doing the Cotswold Way, you've got the escarpment on both sides of the town. The Cotswold Way dips right down into the town centre, making its way up steeply up Stinchcombe Hill, up to the golf course there. Just been speaking to a gentleman who's setting up for the market today. There's a market here every Monday and Friday, and also once a month there's a farmer's market on the second Saturday of the month. So if you time your visit to that, you'll be able to have a look around the market. It's got the usual provision of pubs, cafes, places to eat, places to shop here as well. Large Sainsbury's in town. As I say, it's about 2 miles from Cam Dursley Railway Station, but I'll do a map. So if you want to walk a more indirect route that doesn't, or rather avoids the main road into the town here, you're most welcome to do that. I'm making my way up to Chestal Estate, making our way around to our first port of call, which is Downham Hill. So this is actually going to be a little bit different because Downham Hill has a big mystery to it, and I'll talk all about that when we get up to the top of it. Dursley does have a heritage centre, which is a museum. This time of year it's open Tuesdays, Fridays and Saturdays from 10 AM to 12 PM. And that goes right through to November. There are some Thursdays open as well, but that's only during July and August. So maybe you want to time your walk so it starts later in the day, so you have a visit to this fascinating museum. Dursley is actually the home of Lister. Well, it was a huge factory here that made diesel engines. If you have a narrowboat, you haven't gone electric yet, you probably have a Lister engine on board your narrowboat. It's also the home of Pedersen cycles, and I've spoken about that when I did a separate video about the town of Dursley. From the town centre, our walk starts down Long Street, which is alongside the church of St James the Great here. In fact, down the bottom of this hill was once where Lister's factory was, and we'll be skirting around the edge of that where their headquarters was, making our way into the Chestal Estate. Still in Dursley at the moment at a location called Ferny Hill. I'll insert the map now so you can see where we are. There used to be lots of country estates here, and we're actually crossing up to one called Chestal before we make our way the Ascent going up Downham Hill, which will be interesting, I think. So now we've been climbing up through the Chestal Estate. In fact, this track that I'm on is part of the Cotswold Way. It's where you make your descent into the town of Dursley. We need to make our ascent up to the hill of Downham, which doesn't lie on the Cotswold Way. This takes us to Chestal House and Chestal Cottage, but we need to leave this now, turn left and head over here. Sorry about the awful lighting. There's very, very strong sunlight here this morning. Going up that way there across the field. So on the signpost marker there it marked, of course, Cotswold Way. It also says Cam Down. Now Cam Down will actually be the second of our 3 hills that we'll be covering on this 8-kilometre walk that will go up in total 300 metres. And there's Chestall House, one of the big Cotswold Park estates that dot the Cotswold AOMB. The other side of that fence, so that isn't a right of way, which is why I'm on the field looking back down on it. And if we just turn through about 90 degrees or so, we can make out Stinchcombe Hill and the town of Dursley, where we started our walk, just down there below. Now our first hill today is surrounded in much superstition. It's called either Downham Hill or Downham Hill, but it has another name, and I won't mention what that other name is known colloquially yet, because it gives, well, it tells you our story really. And it is a strange hill because there are no rights of way up it, but there is open access land on the top of it. I know my fellow YouTuber Paul Whitewick has covered these isolated, like little islands, pockets of lands which you can cross, but theoretically you can't get to on any right of way. Although I have checked very many apps and other walking websites that say you can walk up it, so it'll be interesting to see how we do. And I'll tell you the story if we get there, when we get there. Now this kissing gate here looks very railway-like. Perhaps it was acquired from the railway, the branch line railway that once ran into the town of Dursley from Coley Junction, which is also the site of today's current Cam Dursley Railway Station on the main line between Gloucester and Bristol. Maybe it got moved here by the landowner after the branch closed. And there, directly towards the sun, which makes it difficult to film at the moment, is Downham Hill. It's like, well, it's like a sort of a semicircle, isn't it? Maybe a humpback whale with those distinctive clump of trees upon it. I'm just outside the entrance to Newlands Farm. That's the driveway to it there. I'm standing in the lane at the moment, but it's still quite early, so this is where we say goodbye to our Cotswold Way. The Cotswold Way continues up there in the direction of Cam Down, which we will see later today, but we're going to make our way along this lane down here. So this lane actually takes us to a place called Ewley Fields, not that far away from the village of Ewley, and that's somewhere we'll cover more in depth another time. And it goes on to a place called Hydegate, and it's around there we need to turn off the track or lane and then head up towards Downham Hill, which is 199 metres above sea level. Yes, well, I found the path. It's a track. It's not a right of way. It's what's known as a permitted way. So the local landowner has allowed people to cross their land to gain access to what is a right to roam bit on the top of the hill. There's no, as I say, there's no right of way, and it's not been created just by having this path here, but you will need to stick to that. So simply what I've done is I've gone from where we were, Ewley Hill, carried on walking along the lane there, very narrow lane, but I didn't meet one other vehicle on it, but again it was 7:30 in the morning, to almost till we get to Hydegate, and then you'll see the track, or the start of it, tucked in just off the lane here, and there's a gate that we're going to go through to climb up to Downham Hill. So let's go. Now the land that we're crossing over here is part of Newbrook Farm Equestrian, and it's actually a retirement home for horses, for elderly horses and infirm horses, which are dotted around. In fact, there's signs explaining if you see infirm, maybe ones with limp, that sort of thing, maybe they've got a bit of arthritis in their leg, that sort of thing. So it's like a care home for horses in this area. So thank you Newbrook Farm for allowing us to walk up to the top of Downham Hill there. It's actually a very clearly marked track, and it's very wide and it's clear, which is brilliant. We're not even up halfway yet, but the views are already starting to open out. Just on the left of the screen there, that's the edge of Cam Down. In fact, that's the steep escarpment that you walk up if you're walking up the Cotswold Way up to the top of Cam Down. But we will be going up there later in the walk today. And in the middle of the screen, well, that's over towards the Severn Vale. Well, we've made it to the top of Downham Hill. This is the summit. This is 199 metres above sea level. So we'll have a bit to go back down the hill, back at the other side to Cam Down. It's got this beautiful avenue of trees. I've counted 6 trees on this side and 8 on this side. I'm not sure if there's any significance in that whatsoever, or whether they were deliberately planted or if they've grown here naturally. I've no way of knowing that. They are sycamore trees as far as I can make out. Maybe another type of maple, but I'm pretty certain they are ordinary sycamore trees. Beautiful site here with stunning views as you come up, and I'll show you some more of that in a bit as well. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about the mysteries of this hill. Now, further back in that direction, there was a farm. It was a medieval farm, but it wasn't an ordinary medieval farm. It actually farmed rabbits to be bred for meat. And you can see these hummocks back down there. Maybe we'll have a closer look in down that direction. Where I'm standing now, and also running back to behind where the camera is on the tripod at the moment, though, is the secret of this hill. Now, when I said to somebody that I was coming up this hill, I said I was going to walk up Downham Hill, and they said, Downham Hill? I don't know that hill. I said, well, it's near the town of Dursley. I said, it's just off the Cotswold Way. Oh, you don't mean Cam Down? No, not Cam Down. I said, it's next to it. Oh, you mean Smallpox Hill. Yes, now this is known locally as Smallpox Hill, not Downham Hill. There seems to be an air of secrecy around it. Now, near this spot, or around this spot, once stood a hospital, an isolation hospital for patients who had contracted smallpox And at that time, of course, there was no cure for smallpox. It was a deadly disease, a highly contagious disease, and it meant that the patients needed to be kept complete isolation where they couldn't transmit the disease to other people. So there is a bit of a mystery around it. We don't know exactly when the hospital was built, or we don't even know when it closed. But there is one indication to suggest that one Edward Jenner, who grew up in these parts, in fact he went to school in both Wootton-under-Edge, later on in Cirencester, and he trained as a GP nearby, just over the border in South Gloucestershire, in another Cotswold town called Chipping-Sodbury. He became part, well, there was a group of people that wanted to improve both the well-being and welfare of farms and people that worked on farms, and they met up. I think it was at the Fleece Inn in Robborough near Stroud, and there was another one at Alveston, I think that's near Almesbury, again in South Gloucestershire, just to the north of Bristol. He did a lot of work. In fact, he was known as the father, the pioneer of current day vaccines, and we have him to thank for, yes, the smallpox vaccine, the polio vaccine, even going into the modern day, the COVID-19 vaccines that followed on. And of course, the outfall from that is that they could be used later on to help treat and prevent cancer. So we've got a lot to be thankful for him for. Now, from the notes that I've read, and there isn't a great deal on this hill, as I say, it seems to be surrounded in mystery. He came here to this hospital on this hill, perhaps seeing those patients with smallpox, seeing what a state they were in, and seeing that there was very little that the nurses and doctors that worked in this hospital here, Downham Hill in the Cotswolds, could be done, or not done in that case. And I think maybe if he did that, that would have inspired him to find a cure, a prevention for smallpox. It's difficult for me to really convey to you just through my lens and what I'm describing how beautiful this location is. I've never been up here before. I've seen it many, many times. I used to come up and walk in the Cotswolds, the 70s and the 80s. Know the area very well. I've seen the hill, but I've never ever walked up it before. As I say, this part of it is open access land. Anybody can come up here, but we have that one permissive footpath courtesy of the farm, whose name I've forgotten now. Well, it's great that we have that to get up here. And as I say, I'll mark it on the OS map so you can see. Click on the description of today's video, but it's just a beautiful spot here, especially on a wonderful summer's morning here in July of 2024, just to see and appreciate the views that extend around all sides of this, what it's like a elongated rectangle lozenge shape hill which sits around all the other hills. You've got Ewley Bury on that side, which is an Iron Age fort. You've got all of the other fortifications. You've even got Dolmen over in that side around Froster and the Coley Peak site, Nymphsfield Borough. And there's lots in this area in terms of mankind living and working the land going back thousands of years. I say going back a couple of hundred years to the 18th century, kind of when Edward Jenner was around at the latter part of the 18th century. I think he died in 1823 into the 19th century. If he did, and we'll say we don't know for certain, if he did come to this smallpox hospital here on Downham Hill, then he would place the hospital round about the end of the 18th century, perhaps a little bit earlier, perhaps a little bit later, but we can't be sure. But it's an amazing place. You just can't imagine that something horrible as an isolation hospital dealing with smallpox was built on this beautiful hill right here in the Cotswolds. Now these hollows here, depressions in the landscape. On the southerly tip of Downham Hill, I think these were where the rabbit warren was, or the rabbit farm, back in the Middle Ages. It's amazing to see that they're still here on the hill. But this here, no, not the swing, this much larger depression here, which is just behind where I was doing that piece to camera on the top of Downham Hill earlier, is a huge depression. I wonder if this has got anything to do with the foundations of our smallpox hospital. Could be. just my final thoughts here at Downham Hill. Back in the 1970s, the CDC, based at Porton down near the city of Salisbury in Wiltshire, carried out some tests, some biological tests, warfare tests, on an island, I've forgotten the name of the island, in Scotland using anthrax. I believe the island is still contaminated with anthrax. What's this all got to do with smallpox here in Gloucestershire? Well, I'm just wondering if there's still a superstition in this area that perhaps local people think still that this hill is still contaminated in some way with smallpox. And because I get the sense that nobody comes, or very few people come over here, you can just tell that by the footpaths, how little they are used. And I'm just wondering if that fear factor still exists in and around the towns of Dursley and Cam, and it's just like, don't want to go up there, no, bad things happen up there. I don't know. If you've got any thoughts on that, please drop a comment below. Well, I'm going to make my way off Downham Hill now, make my way back down the track there, the permissive track, rejoin the lane that we came off at the high gate, and then cut across up to the direction of Camlong Down. So see you in a bit. Now I've come down off Downham Hill and I've made my way over that track, or lane should I say, from Highgate, passing the farm, down another bridleway, and along this path here is, well, it's like hardcore, like builders' rubble. Just wondering, it's just a thought, maybe, just maybe, it came from that hospital on the top of Downham Hill. I've no way of knowing that, of course, but it was just a thought that crossed my mind. Actually, a little bit further along the bridleway here, you can see there's no hardcore been put in, and the horse's hooves have dug a deep groove into and through the limestone bed. Very, very grainy, and the lighting's awful because the sunlight's just in the wrong position no matter where I position the camera at the moment. Yeah, so we've come into this bit here, which is still on the bridleway, making our way across to Camlong Down, and it seems to be quite breezy, and I wonder if that's for geological reasons, because we're in what I would term a saddle between both Camlong Down and the hill that we're going, or just left from back there at Downham Hill. And as I say, it's noticeable breezier at this point here, but we're going to continue along here and then make our ascent up to Camlong Down. Interestingly, the three hills, Downham Hill, Camlong Down, Peak Down, or Cam Peak, whichever you prefer, are known as outliers. So they're known as Cotswold outliers. They're away from the main escarpment of the Cotswold Hills, which is just behind me, only like a mile or so, if that, just in there behind me. In fact, they do skirt all the way around the town of Dursley. Paths divide at this point. We need to go through the gate though and turn right to make our way up steeply onto the top of Camlong Down, where we should get views looking back towards Downham Hill. Looking back there towards the town of Dursley, where we started our video today. And the hill here today, Camlong Down, is actually 220 metres, so it's actually the highest of the three hills that we're doing today. So I've just come upon the lower footpath there, and at this point we need to do a sharp right, well actually through 270 degrees, I'll insert the map now, to make our way on this footpath, which is actually the Cotswold Way. So we're rejoining the Cotswold Way again at this point. As we begin our ascent going up Camlong Down, we're now looking back to Downham Hill, which is where we were earlier on, with those very distinctive clump of trees on the top of it, with the hospital probably on the right, and the rabbit warren, rabbit farm on the left of the screen. Our view's starting to extend out right across the Severn Vale and into the Forest of Dean, and right across to the Brecon Beacons as well. I think that's looking across towards the Skirrid. And there's a hill there with another clump of trees on it. That's Mayhill, and in fact we'll be coming up to Mayhill when we get towards the end of another project that I'm doing. The Geopark Way from Bridgnorth to Gloucester. Now you wouldn't really think those 20 metres or so in height would make so much difference. But yes, we're at the top of Camlong Down, looking back down onto Downham Hill, which is just 20 metres or so below us in terms of height. Well, welcome to the top of Camlong Down. I have been here before when I was doing the Cotswold Way, but I thought we'd have a closer look at it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap over my lens. I've got my 28mm macro prime on the moment, so I'm going to swap it over and put my telephoto lens on so we can have a look at a closer look at some of the shots and views from the top of the hill here. So that's two of the sycamore trees that are on the left of the hill, standing alone there. And you can just see the dip down, which is part of the rabbit farm there. So you've got the two trees in the centre, and then there's a slight gap before another one. And it was round that area there where the rabbit farm once was, back in the medieval ages. No idea exactly when. It could have been 14th, 15th, 16th century, somewhere around there. And that's looking back down towards the town of Dursley. You may notice a monument there on the centre left of the screen. Well, we walked up to there, not to the top of the monument because it was closed, because I did the Cotswold Way, that section, it's still in the pandemic. Yes, and lots of internal buildings were closed, if you remember. So we were allowed freedoms to walk a bit further, but not to go inside buildings. So it was closed off then. Maybe we'll revisit on a further day, see if I can get a closer shot of it though. And there is William Tyndall's monument just above the village of North Nibley. North Nibley, incidentally, was the site of the last battle between two private armies on English soil. I'll talk about that in the Cotswold Way as well. And William Tyndall was the man who first Englishman, should I say, who translated the Bible from Latin into English. And he was persecuted, tortured, and later executed for that. He was also a vicar of nearby Little Sudbury, a place we also went to along the Cotswold Way. And in this view, we have Peaked Down on the right of the screen, which is where we're going to be heading next. And I think that's something like 180 metres above sea level, so about 40 or something lower than the one here at Camlong Down. And to the left of the screen you might be able to make out a church, and that is the Church of St James the Great that we saw at the beginning of today's video, here in the Cotswolds. Final view looking through the telephoto lens for today is right across to the Malverns, specifically Worcestershire Beacon. And to the right of that, well, it's about 7 miles away towards the city of Worcester, which of course lies right on the River Severn. So we're going to leave Camlong Down now and make our way over to Peaked Down. Just making our descent now down off Camlong Down. 220 metres, the highest in our trio of hills, shall we say, here in the southern part of the Cotswolds today. Bit of shade now as we make our descent following the Cotswold Way down here. And now begins our ascent up to Peaked Down. Conical shaped hill here in the Cotswolds. And now making our ascent of Cam Peak and looking across again to the River Severn and May Hill. Might just be able to make out Slimbridge Church there as well, which is not far from the Wildlife Trust. So here we are on the top of Peak Down, overlooking both Cam and Dursley. Sorry if I called Cam a town earlier on. It's big enough to be a town. I'm surprised it hasn't been changed from a village to a town, because it has those three centres, Upper, Lower Draycott, which is becoming a huge development there around the railway station. Of course, it's convenient for people to commute both into Gloucester and to Bristol as well. That behind us there is back to Camlong Down, which is where we were earlier, and we've still got commanding views in all directions, right out to the Malverns, across the Severn Vale, Forest Dean, Brecon, Beacons. Wow, yes, just everywhere, back across to the Cotswold Escarpment in that direction, and that direction over there, Stinchcombe Hill, because the Cotswold Way dips down into the town, makes its way up steeply to the Stinchcombe Hill, where the golf course is, and then you make your way across to the other Cotswold town of Wootton Under Edge, which is also equally as pleasant. I think I'm going to make my descent shortly back into Dursley, grab a coffee in there before I head home. I hope you've enjoyed this little wander today here in the Cotswold. I can't remember what Cotswold Walk number this is. Well, it's 20 something, probably 26, something like that. And as I say, it wasn't a Cotswold without a car, but you are able to come here without a car, as I say, using Cam Dursley Railway Station with its fairly frequent service every hour or so from Gloucester, Bristol directions. And as I say, I'll do an alternative walk, so you can actually walk directly from Draycott over towards Camlong Down. So you could do the walk I've done today in like a reverse order over there, and then cross the to Downham Hill, and then back into the town of Dursley, cross back to the railway station. Anyway, that's it for today. Hope to see you all on the channel again soon. All the best for now. Cheers. Goodbye.